Well, hello there, Credible Vegetable Report gang. Welcome to another Credible Vegetable Report. My name's Craig Slate, and joining me today is my co-host Matt Mandel. Guys, on this week's episode, we'll be updating you on weather, of course, because, well, we're always talking weather here in the produce business. Plus, what are the domestic farmers expecting on this year's outcome on the bottom line? We'll report out on what could be the sweetest berry in the world.
I need strawberries!
That's what they say, anyway. We'll be looking at some movers and shakers in the grocery retail game. Who has been crowned top? Changes are being made to accommodate for the online consumers. That's later in the show. Hi, Matt. How's it going?
Good morning. All good. Greetings from Monterey, California. The Matt Mandel Roadshow continues. I am happy to be joining you from beautiful Monterey, where the weather is far nicer than it is in Arizona at the moment.
Agreed. Glad to have you out here.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's not sweltering as bad. I mean, how bad was it when you left?
107 degrees the day I left, and I arrived, and it was 62 degrees and sunny. So it's hard to beat.
Pretty good switch for sure. Yeah. So I like your setup you got there. Nice little wood paneling. Going with the caramel motif.
Exactly. Trying to fit in with the Central California coast theme.
Yeah, definitely has that California vibe to it for sure. Hey man, with like speaking of the weather, which we always do, we talk weather. Uh, had the hurricane come and go. What do you make of what was it? Hurricane Barrel? Is that what it was?
Hurricane Barrel. Yeah.
Barrel. That's what it was. All
When
right.
when we spoke last week, I was predicting a slightly stronger storm than it ended up being when it finally made landfall. Um, Actually, the day after we recorded, the forecast started having the track of the hurricane head a little further north than we originally predicted. We talked about the fact that it might be hitting South Texas, and it came in a little closer to Port of Galveston when it finally made landfall. But as predicted, there was a lot of rain in the general Houston area, and the size of the storm uh, brought rain not just to Houston, but it continued up through central United States, where the effects of that rain continue, and the front end of the storm has made its way all the way up into Montreal. I was talking to a buddy yesterday and said that the Hurricane Barrel had brought rain all the way up there. So as we discussed, much needed rain for a dry area within Texas, but you kind of wish that you could parse it out a little and have rain in smaller tranches in order to you know fight the effects of the drought that they've been going through. But
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
rain is good rain when it's been that dry for that long.
Yeah, talking. Yeah, the thing. It brought a lot of water with it, and some places that really didn't need the water. Uh, Definitely brought a lot to Houston. But I was talking to some farmers out there in the Kentucky area, and parts of Kentucky didn't get too bad, but some of their farms got as much as 4 to 5 inches of rain over the couple of days. So it definitely brought water with it, and it's taken it. I didn't realize it taking it all the way to Canada, but apparently, based on your sources, Canada got included in the hurricane.
I was a little surprised by that as well, but yeah, take
Now,
consider the source when taking it to the bank.
I was gonna say, we don't reveal any sources here, but yeah, exactly. Consider the source. So, who knows?
But
But
you know, as we talked, Hurricane Barrel is most likely a sign of things to come. The earliest Category 5 hurricane on record, with the warm ocean temperatures in the South Atlantic, uh, and slightly cooler temperatures up north and cooler temperatures down south makes for a perfect pathway for storm development. In the future, I believe we mentioned it maybe a month or two back that this is predicted to be one of the most active hurricane seasons on record. And as of right now, there's a storm uh, developing off the southeast U.S. It most likely will not turn into a tropical storm or hurricane, but it will be bringing more rain to the southeast over the next week or so. So something to keep an eye on. But it's going to be a wild season and something that we need to make sure that we're prepared for, because as we know, being in agriculture, Mother Nature, whether we like it or not, she's with us for the long.
It's a factor. It's a factor in everything out there, And you talk the hurricanes. So the annual average hurricanes is 14 this time of year. They're predicting between 17 and 25, but last year it was no slouch. Last year we had the fourth highest storms in a season. It was at 20, and so. Um, Yeah. So when you look at if and you take a look at they do a report. There's a report out there, at least Strata or Statista did a graph. I mean, it goes back. It's the 2024. I'm sorry, it's a prediction, but it's the number of named storms in the North Atlantic since 1851. And looking at that graph that they put together, you were talking, if you go back all the way to 1851, 1860s, I mean, pretty consistently under 10. And you start to get up into, 100, 110 years later, you start to get into the 90s and now into the 2000s. 15 became much more the norm. And now we're consistently in the last 10 or 15 years, we're seeing what just about every year above 15. There was an outlier around 2012, something like that was dropped down. But there's a definite noticeable change when you look at this graph and you look at the named storms. You can definitely see things have changed.
Absolutely. And it has to do a lot with the flip-flopping of weather patterns between the El Nino and the La Nina. And like I said, the water temperatures in the South Atlantic are much warmer than normal, which is what led to the development of Beryl as early as it had. Normally the temps that we're seeing right now are typical for late September, when hurricane season really starts to ramp up. And while Statista says 17 to 25, my sources are actually predicting 25 to 30, with landfalls being anywhere from, I think, 7 to 15 landfalls of actual hurricanes, not just named storms, but hurricanes, with major hurricanes in the 6 to 8 range. So hold on to your butts. It's going to be a wild ride.
Going to be a wild ride for sure. Yeah. And looks like where you're heading here soon, as you continue your road journey, looks like, said it got to Canada. I mean, there's been uh, other things impacting, but Michigan's certainly had some flooding for sure.
Yeah. So the remnants of Beryl over the next week or so will continue to drop precipitation through the central U.S., but the longer term forecast, 2 to 4 weeks out, is actually for drier and warmer through the central and southeast portions of the U.S. So whether that means we're going to actually have a break from the storms for a little bit or not remains to be seen. But outside of this development off the southeast, there's nothing in the longer term forecast over the next couple of weeks. So dry, warmer temperatures. When I say warmer, we're talking 1 to 3 degrees above normal. Nothing outrageous, but warmer is warmer.
Well, I don't know. I think there may be parts of the world parts of the U.S. that might argue with it's not hotter than normal because there's a lot of folks getting pretty toasty. I mean, I know the desert here in California got close to a record a couple of days ago. I think it got to 128, and I think the world record on recording of temperatures, I believe, is 130. And again, you may correct me on that, but yeah, I mean, I'm seeing there's reports from Vancouver, right on the west out here, from Vancouver all the way down to the Baja, uh,
Yeah.
super high temps.
I was going to say outside of the West Coast, which it's on fire right now. Thankfully we're on the west side of the mountains here. If we head over through the valley into Salinas area, it's a completely different world. Everywhere, people from Fresno all the way down through the desert in El Centro Brawley area. There, it's just baking right now.
Well, and I saw a report too on the lettuce guys over here. They're facing some leaf burn, internal browning. That it's it's been issues for broccoli, all the stuff that the heat's creating some negative effects as well for these guys in that leaf space.
Good for markets, bad for production.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So it's always something, baby. Always something. Well, look, on to some other things. The USDA did a report. The Department of Ag did, and they do a prediction on the expected farm income. Uh, it's expected to plummet. I mean, the numbers are pretty crazy. They're looking at a $43 billion year over year
Drop.
decrease compared to last year.
Yeah, and I mean that's we've heard stories over the last several years that farming in the U.S. has been unfavorable, but a drop that big, the largest year-to-year drop prediction on record. It spells trouble for the U.S. farmer, and that's not something we need. It's not something we want. So whether it's the drop in prices, government payments going down, and then obviously the thing we've talked about forever and ever, the cost of production just continue to rise. So unless unless these prices of commodities actually come up, um, you know, these farmers are in for a world of hurt.
Yeah, and I mean this is like several of these reports that we're looking at. This is everybody included. It's not just the veg guys. It's not just the produce guys. This is across corn, soybean, eggs, just ag in general, right? And they've got an average of $72,000 per farm. Is kind of I guess the number they use in terms of uh, what they bring in. But yeah, like you said, commodity prices listed as kind of number one issue. Although we had prices jump up a couple of years ago in a lot of spaces, through at the end of the pandemic, it's definitely come off. And when you look at this graph, I mean, taking a look at what the USDA put out on a graph basis, so we saw a peak back in 2022 for U.S. farm incomes, and it has steadily dropped. It dropped in 2023, and now they're expecting another significant drop 2024, taking it back below 120. Uh, was it billion? Is that number billion? In terms of get my numbers here,
Yep,
yeah, straight
those are
on it, but
billions of
yeah,
dollars.
yeah. So that's net income. So and so it's looking at the whole United States, but you're talking about an industry that was pushing close to 200 billion. Now it's 2 years ago. Now it's dropped to 120. That's going to have ripple effects for sure, because you can't have that much of an income change without some kind of ripple effect, which likely will mean fewer farmers and higher prices at some point to turn that around.
Hopefully it's not all doom and gloom. The lowering of gas prices, which any farmer will tell you, their fuel prices is, their fuel cost is a huge portion of their costs. Hopefully, as those fuel prices continue to drop, that will spell a little bit of relief. But that's just one component in a huge puzzle. And unless we all know if prices continue to remain depressed, then you're not going to dig yourself out of that hole.
No, well, for sure, and it's yeah, they gonna have to have some changes on there. There's gonna be some uh, there's gonna be price pressure at some point, because eventually guys and gals are gonna just get out of the business and do something else.
Oh,
So
you know,
go to real estate, because that place seems to that market seems to never go down.
My goodness, I'll tell you what. Hopefully with the renegotiation of the farm bill coming up, there will be some relief for producers in there. But as Congress has continued to kick the can down the road, um, there's no help in sight.
Yeah, indeed. Well, hey, on some more positive news. So the folks over at Driscoll, They maybe have the sweetest berry in the world. I don't know, but there's a report out this week. It's the most flavorful strawberries and raspberries. And it sounds like these guys, they from what I read, it's a berry, it's a variety, it's what they've had problems in. It doesn't meet all the defined specs, it doesn't hold up on shipping, whatever, right? All the things that, make the produce taste good. We and in this industry, we go away from that, and we get something that's shipped. Looks like Driscoll's going to go ahead and go out and put this dude out there, and see how it goes. Called the sweetest batch berry, I believe, is the branding that you use on it. So what do you think about that?
I mean, Driscoll's for years has, been the king of varieties, and that's really how they establish themselves in the marketplace is, putting a name to a fantastic product. Whether the consumers will flock to this new variety based on the texture or consistency of the berry, or whether it's actually going to have the shippability is still remain to be seen. But being the leader in varieties and great tasting fruit, it'll be interesting. I have not actually seen any on the shelf. I'd love to try it out. My kids, 5 and 8 years old, they eat more fruit than I can keep in the house. So if I see them, I'm 100% excited to try them. Uh,
Yeah.
we'll see if they can actually make the shelf based on these concerns on the shippability.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting to see. And I'm like you, I'm anxious to see it. I think they're going to price it on the higher side. I think they're going to charge a premium, which they should, because of the risks that they're taking on, like I say, the product being able to sell through. But for me, I'm anxious to see what they look like, see how they are, because one of the things is, I mean, it's probably a softer fruit, which, everybody gets all wadded up at the retail side because, we don't want it to shrink. But anyway, I am going to get a little on that soapbox. I mean, but for me, I think the industry and across all things we do, we spec out so much good fruit and good products in the marketplace, right? And quite often the uglier the product looks, the better it freaking tastes. And yet
Yeah,
we've decided to spec it out for appearance and then send consumers home and back, that was a nothing taste or nothing burger, as some folks say. And, I think I'm anxious to see these guys, see what kind of success they have with it, because I think the more we lean into some of these imperfections and then focus on the flavor and the taste and the usability of the product, is really where we need to be going to really drive consumption.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
So,
that double-edged sword you talk about. We want to have the best fruit, but if it somehow gets stopped at the retailer's back door, then the consumers will never see it. So, I think it really comes down to partnering with your retail partners and just saying, hey, this is not going to meet what is considered your normal spec, but give it a try. Let the consumers, be the ultimate judge and hope it sells through because uh, ultimately that's what's going to drive more consumption is having those better experiences with the great tasting fruit and vegetables.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Well, some folks that are also doing a good job coming out of the great state of Texas, my home state. Thank you very much. Out of San Antonio, HEB has taken home the Dun Humby Hardware as top retailer. This is the third time in 7 years that the gals and guys from San Antonio have taken on the hardware. Pretty impressive stuff, right? When you think about it, and this is a top retailer. I mean, Amazon is also on that list, but Amazon, Costco, um, they were the in the top three. So also good retailers. But yeah, it's a big deal when you're named the top retailer in the United States.
All you have to do is walk into their stores and you can see the difference in the way they try to retail versus a lot of these other people. Big, beautiful displays. The product is really foot forward. Um, it provides a value to the consumer that a lot of retailers, they may be going for smaller days and higher price points. Yeah, HEB on a consistent basis is putting out a great value for their consumers, and they're moving volume through their stores, which, hats off to them. They found a way to, I don't want to say crack the code, but they take advantage of flushes in product. They take advantage of spot buys and opportunities, and provide those savings. They pass them along to the consumer.
Yeah, and I think at the heart of their success, for me, and being very familiar with them and working with them for years, but their focus is really on that consumer, right? They're very much dialed into the consumers where they work, and so not only do they bring in the pricing that the consumers need and look for. That's a key focus. But they make sure that they're bringing the products that they can recognize and the products that they're looking for, right? So they're very good about segmenting for what they're for what they're doing in Houston and what that consumer looks like in Houston. It's different from what it looks like in South Texas. It's just two different consumers, same state, but there's certainly a lot of things that are different in their basket that they're putting out there. So yeah, hats off to HEB.
As you mentioned, the state of Texas being as big as it is, it might as well be four different states, um, different consumers, and making sure that the variety, their agility with being able to swap that out, and if something isn't moving, they change it out and make sure that, as you said, they have what the consumers are looking for on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. No doubt about that, and yeah, it is very much diverse. I can tell you in terms of different parts of the state. So anyway, over to the Midwest before we get out of our industry and market update. But the folks at Hy-Vee are leaning into some. So when I read this, I was frankly a little shocked. I'm curious how this actually works. I may have to get my way over there and check this out, or maybe when you're up in Michigan, you can give a check in a Hy-Vee. But they're using PayPal and Venmo. Now I'm a user of Venmo. I use Zelle. I use all this stuff, but they're offering this payment for their online shoppers, which I thought was intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, coming out of the pandemic, talking to several people yesterday, everybody was talking about how, the services aspect of our business is here to stay, whether it's Instacart or online shopping. Uh, it seems that consumers have grown accustomed to ordering online. I always said that it wasn't going to stick around, but it appears that I am wrong, and people are doing a vast majority of shopping online, at least in certain areas of the country. And so facilitating that online shopping experience by adding these new payment options is again meeting consumers where they are, rather than trying to come up with the next great idea and telling consumers it's what they need.
Well, I made the mistake, which I've made many, of thinking so back in the late 90s, early 2000. That's when actually online shopping came in. That was the OG group of bring it to your house, don't go shopping at the grocery store and this, that, and the other. And man, I believed it was going to be the thing. And it was not the thing back then because they had not got the data figured. They had got the back then. If you tried to go in and do an online shopping, you might as well set in for about 4 or 5 hours because of the system speed and just the platforms and everything were terrible. So yeah, I made some investments in that, home delivery, online shopping they had in, and I watched that implode. And I'm like, yeah, well, maybe it's not a thing. And then here it comes back, and well, maybe it is a thing. I don't know. So just a little early adopter on that program, but yeah, it's definitely here to stay. And I can tell you, the Slate household leans into the whole online shopping on a heavy way. We're in that group, even though we're old. We're freaking still part of the young movement. So. But
And my wife
it,
is the online shopper of the household. I still like to go see, feel, touch, and I'm 100% a buy with my eyes kind of guy. So I need to put my eyes on it. I don't trust whoever's out there picking off the shelves. I like to pick my own produce, but there's a great majority of people that are not in the same camp as I am. Maybe I'm old school produce guy.
Yeah, it sounds like to me you might have some control issues, my friend.
we, we're not going to go there.
All right. Well, let's do go to the markets real quick, and let's kind of hit on those and get everybody out of here. But squash deal, seeing we've talked the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's been pretty difficult in the Zook space, especially. Still not um, great, but getting better in the Zook. Gray's kind of improved a little bit. We've seen the gray. We're knocking around 10 to 12, pushing closer to that, more of a firm 12 now. And Zook, I think we'll probably see double digits next week and maybe even better. We're still in that 9-10 range kind of a deal. But what do you think?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the good news is that it seems to have at least found the bottom. You know, I'm gonna start knocking on wood and hope I don't jinx it. But we'd seen steady declines week over week, and it's roughly the same pace as it was last week. But it actually looks like the market has firmed up. So hoping that we'll be able to maintain right at the low double digits. It's a good place where farmers can hopefully be making money and the demand is not depressed. So if it sticks in this range, I see much better movement going forward.
Well, and it'll affect all the things we're going to talk about here, but some of the areas back towards East Coast, understand North Carolina, due to the heat, is pretty much burned up and kind of they're done in a way. I know up around the Michigan area that stuff's starting to click and they're starting to rock and roll. But some of the stuff's getting out of the way that's on the East Coast, and that's gonna, like I say, affect all this stuff. I think it'll affect some of the squash market. Parts of Kentucky will probably be affected by the hurricanes and the water coming through, and that may delay some things. So and then the heat on the California side, we talked about that last week. I think that heat effect and that Santa Maria area and some of the squash areas over here, even us down in the Baja, I think we will definitely see some production issues, which will in turn less product, higher prices. So
Exactly.
and then the organics, yeah, and the organics have stayed. We talked last week. Organics pretty much still the same, but that mid twenties or low to mid twenties on the OG Zook, and then the yellow is still hanging at that $35 a box, anywhere in that neighborhood. If it's more of a if you can find it program.
Exactly. It's spicy if you can get it, but you're going to be paying through the teeth.
Yeah. Cukes, nothing really exciting to talk about there. Holding in pretty much steady as she goes. A little bit, I'd say a little bit softer pricing when you get maybe over into the Texas area, maybe a little south of that $20 bill in a couple of spots over that way. But everything I can see from east to west, it's pretty much that 18 to $20 range on supers and 16, 18 on the selects, and then planes. Well, you never can sell a damn plane.
Well, again, you couple that with the heat, and you're going to have larger portions of off grades. So
Yeah,
I would expect, unfortunately, the lower end of that market, maybe open season pretty soon here.
yeah. So, and then OG Cukes up a little bit, but holding in there about where they're normally at. But they're anywhere from that $15 to $17 range on the OG Cukes, and like I say, that one Cukes all the way around pretty steady as she goes. Green bells, though. Uh, Come on, man. When are we going to get some green bells in this market, Matt?
I don't want to call them the bane of my existence, but I'll tell you what, if you have good pepper right now, it's worth a pretty penny. Yeah. Talking
Oh my
about the East
gosh.
Coast and having some peppers burn up. I was talking to a guy last night. He's like, it's not a matter of what the price is. It's really a matter of can you find them. The
Yeah.
choppers are abundant right now, and people are saying they don't want them, and then they start going out looking for number one pepper. And a lot of people are settling for choice right now just because they just aren't out there. Good
Yeah.
pepper is hard to come by.
Yeah, and we had prices come in a little bit last week. We peaked about a week, probably a week
about
10
10 days
days,
ago.
12 days back. Yeah, about 10 or 12 days ago, we peaked and we saw it come back in. Uh, but I got to be honest with you, it's feeling a little bit like this thing may be um, going back up. I don't know. Some of the winds that came through from that hurricane. I know the guys that did have peppers. They got uh, blows the plant around, blows them over, opens the leaves up, and then you start to get the burn because when the sun comes back out and the leaves aren't covering, and so there's there's things that affect it with that storm that came through, and then just like that sheer heat's taking people out. So I don't know. I hate to say that it's still high, but it could go back up. Even though I thought it had kind of hit a peak last week, and we're going to see some relief. Right now, it's showing some signs that it's going to at least stay here, and if not stay here, go higher. So hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully I'm wrong in that outlook.
Well, with as you mentioned, the wind and the heat, you're also going to end up with some bloom drop from the wind, and
Yeah.
then the flowers that are on the plants, will end up burning up. So you're also creating a hole for the future. So I think higher prices are here to stay, and I wish I could say there's going to be some relief, but unfortunately, I think in the 2 to 4 weeks out, we're going to continue to see these prices rising.
Indeed, indeed. Last but not least, nothing super exciting to speak about there. It's still big money. We talked about this before the deal started, but the Roma deal still strong and not super plentiful.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you and I discussed, we had issues with our tomato guy, and there's just going to be issues throughout. This thing is going to be strong and probably stronger than normal for a while. There, had a period of softness there, uh, both both in quality and markets, but this thing's going to be strong, and I see 20 plus markets for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think certainly through next week, and I'm like you, I don't see anything to give you an indication this thing's going to be pressed for pricing over the next couple of weeks for sure. So all you tomato buyers out there, just buckle up and pay the piper, as they say, because it's probably not going to get much better. So just be glad
Knock
you
up
got
some
them.
volume now.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I guess that kind of brings us to the end of the show. We're here in California. Gonna go over and check out OPS and say hi to a few friends and yeah, catch up on what the organic world's up to. Right?
Hopefully, we'll have a full recap next week of how the show was, how it went. But it's always great to be out here among our colleagues in the industry, and great to see some familiar faces that we haven't had a chance to catch up with in a while. So happy to be here. Happy to be reporting live from Monterey, California. And that's all I got. Thanks for having me
All right.
again.
Well, I always love having you, man. I mean, and see, you can do this from the road, man. You could have done this from our. They got internet over there, so next time,
Internet.
when
What's that?
the old internets. No, man, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. It's always fun to get on here and catch up and shout out there, everybody out there. And please, guys, as always, the likes help us forwarding this on to your friends and family, anybody in the retail space. I mean, we're trying to get this message out to these weekly messages, for information, what's going on in the industry, what's going on in the market. Send this out to your store personnel. Share this with those, at that level, and maybe a few of those will pick it up and they can catch up on some of this data, what's going on, hot topics around the industry or what's happening in the markets and in the veg space, that kind of thing. Because that's ultimately, with all the stuff we're trying to produce, we're really trying to build a message that not just amongst us that are in this trading on the daily basis, but to really get this down to the folks that are on the front line. And then ultimately, when we're trying help this have this information help us with the consumers and drive more sales. So please, as much as you can share this through your organization, as much as you can share it, like I say, with those folks on the front line, at the restaurants, the chefs, you name it, right? Because they need, I'm sure they're looking for information. So Let them know they can find it here at the Credible Vegetable Report. We thank you guys all for listening. Thank you each week for all the time. And you guys take care. And we are out. Thanks, guys.